Welcome back to Coin Age Era. Today we're diving into four Liberty Era Washington quarters, 1967, 1977, 1979, and 1980. These aren't just coins. They are pieces of American identity. The Washington quarter was created to honor George Washington, the man who chose freedom over power. Every time this coin changed hands, it carried a message: liberty, leadership, and the spirit of a nation. And some years of this coin became far more valuable than anyone ever imagined. The Washington quarter was first issued in 1932, marking 200 years since George Washington's birth. His portrait replaced the standing Liberty design, symbolizing a shift from artistic liberty to historic leadership. By the late 1960s and 1970s, these quarters were no longer silver, but their stories mint errors, and survival rates made certain years legendary among collectors. 1967 was not an ordinary year in American history. The United States was standing at a crossroads socially, politically, and economically. The Vietnam War was escalating, inflation was rising, and for the first time in generations, Americans were losing trust in the money they carried every day. Just 2 years earlier, silver had disappeared from U.S. quarters. The familiar weight, the sound, the intrinsic value, all gone. The 1967 Washington quarter was born into this uncertainty, struck in copper-nickel clad, symbolizing a new era where money was backed by trust rather than precious metal. This was also the final year when U.S. coins carried no mint marks at all. To prevent hoarding, the government removed mint identifiers, making every 1967 quarter look the same, whether it came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Collectors today see this as a silent rebellion against certainty, a moment when history intentionally blurred the lines. At the center of the coin stood George Washington, calm and composed. His portrait reminded Americans of leadership built on sacrifice, not wealth. At a time when the nation felt divided, the quarter carried a quiet message: freedom survives even when the future feels unstable. Most 1967 quarters were heavily used, passed through hands, pockets, and cash registers. Very few survived untouched, and even fewer were struck with the sharp detail and balance that collectors now search for. That is why certain 1967 quarters, preserved perfectly or marked by rare, striking anomalies, later shocked the collecting world, with reported valuations climbing as high as $130,000. But this value wasn't created overnight. It was earned through survival. By 1967, the United States Mint was under immense pressure. Millions of quarters were needed for daily commerce. Yet the nation was still adjusting to the sudden loss of silver coinage. The focus was no longer beauty or precision, it was speed. Coins were struck rapidly, dies were reused longer than ideal, and quality control quietly took a step back. This environment created a paradox. While millions of 1967 quarters flooded the market, truly well-struck, flawless examples became extremely rare. The absence of mint marks added another layer of mystery. Without a D or S to identify origin, each 1967 quarter became anonymous. Collectors today believe this anonymity caused many exceptional coins to go unnoticed and spent without a second thought. Only years later did experts begin to realize that some quarters showed unusually sharp hair details on Washington's portrait, stronger eagle feathers on the reverse, or perfectly centered strikes, signs of early die states, and careful alignment that were never meant to survive circulation. Over time, a small number of these quarters emerged from forgotten coin rolls, bank vaults, and private collections. Preserved in near-perfect condition, they told a different story than the worn examples most people remembered. Some displayed rare, striking irregularities, doubled details, off-center impressions, or planchette anomalies created during a period when minting speed mattered more than perfection. These mistakes, once considered flaws, became the very features that transformed an ordinary coin into a historic artifact. As the decades passed, the 1967 Washington quarter began to gain attention in high-grade auctions. Collectors realized that this coin represented more than a date. It captured a moment when American money itself was changing identity. In elite condition, with exceptional eye appeal and historical significance, select examples shocked the numismatic world with reported prices reaching up to $130,000. What was once pocket change became proof that survival, rarity, and timing can redefine value. The 1967 quarter is no longer judged by metal content alone. It is measured by how well it escaped wear, how clearly it carries Washington's image, and how honestly it reflects a nation in transition. Every surviving high-grade piece is a quiet witness to economic fear, industrial pressure, and the resilience of American coinage. That is why certain 1967 quarters, preserved perfectly or marked by rare, striking anomalies, later shocked the collecting world, with reported valuations climbing as high as $130,000. But this value wasn't created overnight. It was earned through survival. And with that, we move forward in time. The year 1977 didn't arrive with chaos, it arrived with recovery. America was slowly rebuilding confidence after economic stress, oil crises, and uncertainty. Inflation still existed, but hope had returned. The 1977 Washington quarter became a symbol of stability, a coin designed to blend into everyday life rather than stand out. Unlike earlier transition years, the minting process in 1977 was more controlled. Coins were struck in massive numbers, yet most entered circulation immediately. They were used, worn, scratched, and forgotten. Very few were saved with care, which is why pristine examples are now surprisingly scarce. Washington's portrait remained unchanged, calm, dignified, and familiar. But behind that familiarity was a subtle shift. The quarter had fully accepted its role as a utility coin, not a treasure. Ironically, that mindset is what later made elite 1977 quarters so desirable. As time passed, collectors discovered that perfectly struck 1977 quarters, free from marks and wear, were far rarer than expected. High-grade survivors began appearing in specialized collections and auctions, where their historical context and condition pushed reported values as high as $110,000. This coin proves one powerful truth of numismatics. Sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones nobody thought to save. By 1977, the U.S. Mint had mastered efficiency. Coins were produced in enormous quantities, machines were refined, and consistency was the priority. But this efficiency came with a hidden cost. Dies were pushed to their limits, planchettes moved faster, and minor imperfections were often ignored because speed mattered more than perfection. As a result, many 1977 quarters entered circulation with weak details, light strikes, or surface marks that collectors would later reject. Because the 1977 quarter looked ordinary, almost no one saved it. There was no silver, no dramatic design change, no public excitement. It passed through millions of hands, gas stations, grocery stores, toll booths, slowly losing its sharpness. Decades later, this heavy circulation created an unexpected reality. True high-grade 1977 quarters became exceptionally difficult to find. When collectors finally began searching seriously, they noticed something important. Quarters with crisp hair detail on Washington's portrait, strong lettering, and a fully defined eagle on the reverse were not common at all. Coins with clean fields, balanced luster, and no contact marks stood out instantly, like survivors from a forgotten era. These qualities signaled early die strikes and careful handling, conditions rarely preserved in 1977. As grading standards became stricter, elite examples of the 1977 Washington quarter started to command attention. By the late 1980s and 1990s, numismatists began to look back at the 1977 Washington quarter with fresh eyes. At first glance, these coins seemed ordinary, circulated, copper-nickel clad, and lacking any spectacular design changes. Yet the careful eyes of collectors revealed something fascinating. Rarity wasn't always about design or silver content. Sometimes it was about survival and condition. Top-grade 1977 quarters began appearing from old coin rolls, forgotten bank deposits, and private collections. These survivors showcased perfect hair details on Washington's portrait, fully defined lettering, and crisp eagle feathers on the reverse, features almost impossible to maintain through decades of circulation. Coins that retained their original luster with minimal marks quickly became the crown jewels of mid-20th century quarter collections. In addition, subtle minting irregularities added extra intrigue. Some coins exhibited die alignment quirks, double striking effects, or slight planchet anomalies, which were rare enough to make them collector magnets. Each coin told a story of how minting processes, human oversight, and sheer chance preserved history in small metal discs. Auction houses soon took notice. Elite examples of the 1977 Washington quarter started selling at staggering prices, sometimes reaching $110,000, not for their material, but for their rarity, condition, and historical significance. Collectors realized these quarters weren't just currency. They were pieces of living history, snapshots of an era that few had recognized at the time. The 1977 quarter is a lesson in patience and perspective. It proves that even coins that seem ordinary in the present can become legendary when time scarcity and condition align. For collectors, finding a high-grade 1977 quarter is like holding a piece of history that the world almost forgot. The 1979 Washington quarter, a coin born during change in mass production. The year 1979 marked a turning point for America. Technology was advancing rapidly, culture was shifting, and the country was preparing for a new decade. The economy was improving, yet coins were no longer just currency. They had become tools of mass production, struck in enormous numbers to meet daily demand. The 1979 Washington quarter was part of this massive minting effort. Millions were released into circulation, most destined to be spent and forgotten. Yet among the ordinary coins, a small number survived in near-perfect condition, with sharp strikes, crisp details, and original luster qualities that would make them highly prized decades later. Washington's portrait remained calm and dignified, a symbol of steady leadership amid societal and economic changes. The reverse eagle, spreading its wings, carried the timeless message of freedom, even in coins that most people would overlook. What makes the 1979 quarter remarkable is how few top-grade examples survived. Most were circulated heavily, worn down, or damaged, leaving only a rare fraction in exceptional condition. Collectors later discovered these hidden gems, and today Elite 1979 quarters can command up to $102,000, a testament to rarity, preservation, and historical significance. By 1979, the United States Mint had perfected speed and efficiency. Millions of Washington quarters were struck, designed to meet the growing demands of commerce. Yet this mass production came with a hidden paradox. The more coins minted, the fewer perfectly preserved examples remained. Most coins entered circulation immediately, passing through countless hands, pockets, and cash registers, slowly losing their original detail. Collectors who studied 1979 quarters discovered something fascinating. Some coins, untouched and perfectly struck, had survived purely by chance, hidden in rolls, bank vaults, or private collections. These elite coins showed sharp hairlines on Washington's portrait, full eagle feathers, and strong lettering, features that had all but disappeared from the vast majority of circulated pieces. Even minor minting irregularities, subtle die misalignments, planchet flaws, or double details became treasured identifiers among collectors. Over time, auction houses began noticing the scarcity of high-grade 1979 quarters. Coins that once seemed ordinary began commanding extraordinary prices. Top-condition examples, combining rarity, quality, and historical context, reached reported values of $102,000. What had been everyday pocket change was now recognized as a piece of history, a coin that silently survived an era of rapid production and change. The 1979 quarter reminds collectors of an essential lesson. Rarity is not always about metal content or dramatic design. Sometimes it's about survival, preservation, and timing. A coin that looks ordinary to most can, decades later, become a legend in the numismatic world, treasured by those who understand its story. By 1979, the United States Mint had fully embraced high-speed coin production. Millions of Washington quarters were minted, moving from presses to circulation almost immediately. To the average person, these coins seemed ordinary, small, everyday currency without silver, flashy designs, or mint marks that drew attention. But for collectors, the story was entirely different. Among the mass-produced pieces were rare survivors of exceptional quality. Most 1979 quarters entered circulation, passing through countless hands, pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. Over time, their details faded and luster was lost. Yet a small number were preserved perfectly, tucked away in coin rolls, hoarded by careful collectors, or forgotten in bank vaults. These coins retained crisp details on Washington's hair, fully defined eagle feathers, and clear lettering, creating a stark contrast with the worn examples everyone else used. Minting irregularities, once unnoticed, became crucial identifiers. Some coins displayed subtle die cracks, planchet flaws, or double details, features that transformed ordinary circulation coins into highly desirable collector pieces. Collectors recognized that these imperfections, combined with survival in near mint condition, created true rarity. Over the years, auction houses and private sales began to highlight these elite 1979 quarters. Despite their high mintage numbers, top-grade examples were incredibly scarce, and collectors were willing to pay astonishing prices to secure them. Reports from specialized numismatic sales show values reaching $102,000 for the finest specimens. A coin that once passed unnoticed in a pocket now commanded the attention of collectors worldwide, celebrated for its preservation and historical context. The 1979 quarter proves an important lesson in numismatics. Rarity is not always about design or metal content. Sometimes it's about survival, condition, and timing. Even a seemingly ordinary coin can become legendary when the right circumstances allow it to escape the wear and tear of everyday life. And now, let's move to the final coin in our series, the 1980 Washington quarter, closing the chapter on this Liberty era journey. The year 1980 marked a closing chapter of a transformative decade. America faced economic challenges, global tensions, and cultural shifts, yet everyday life carried on, and so did the Washington quarter. Unlike earlier years, the 1980 quarter was fully copper-nickel clad, widely circulated, and seemingly ordinary. But hidden within millions of these, coins were examples that would become highly prized by collectors decades later. The 1980 Washington quarter retained George Washington's familiar portrait, calm and dignified, symbolizing stability in uncertain times. On the reverse, the soaring eagle continued to represent freedom, quietly watching over each coin's journey through countless hands. Most 1980 quarters were heavily circulated. They passed through pockets, cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks, slowly losing their sharp details and luster. Yet a rare fraction survived in near-perfect condition, with crisp strikes, sharp details, and original brilliance. These coins became the ultimate test for collectors, a reminder that scarcity is created not by design alone, but by survival and condition. Over time, top-grade 1980 quarters attracted serious attention from numismatists. In auctions and private collections, these elite coins demonstrated that even a common year could hold extraordinary value. Some examples reached $99,000, confirming that rarity, preservation, and historical context can transform ordinary currency into treasures. By 1980, the United States Mint had fully embraced efficiency in coin production. Millions of Washington quarters were struck, designed to meet the demands of everyday commerce. To the casual observer, these coins were ordinary, copper-nickel clad, circulated widely, and seemingly without remarkable features. Yet for collectors, the story of the 1980 quarter was far from ordinary. Most 1980 quarters entered circulation immediately, passing through countless pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. Over time, the majority became worn, their details softened and luster diminished. But a small fraction survived untouched, tucked away in coin rolls, private collections, or forgotten bank drawers. These elite specimens retained sharp portrait hairlines, full eagle feathers, and crisp lettering, qualities nearly impossible to maintain in everyday use. Subtle minting quirks added even more allure. Some 1980 quarters displayed die alignment variations, planchette irregularities, or minor doubling, imperfections that transformed ordinary circulation coins into collector treasures. Each high-grade coin told a story of survival, a small piece of history that endured while millions of others faded into obscurity. Auction houses soon recognized the rarity of these elite coins. As we look back on this incredible journey from 1967 to 1980, these Washington quarters are more than just coins. They are snapshots of American history, preserved in metal. Each year tells its own story. The 1967 quarter surviving a nation in transition, the 1977 quarter quietly building rarity amid recovery, the 1979 quarter emerging from mass production as a hidden treasure, and the 1980 quarter closing the Liberty Era chapter with scarce perfection. Together, they remind us that value is not just in silver or mintage, but in preservation, history, and the story each coin carries. Whether you are a collector or simply a lover of history, seeing these four quarters side by side is a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary coins hold the most extraordinary tales. So cherish them, study them, and let them take you on a journey through time, because in these small pieces of metal, history truly lives. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Coinage Era for more incredible coin stories, rare collectibles, and fascinating history you won't find anywhere else.